Hello and welcome to the Into the North podcast. I am one of your hosts, Noobzors, joined by my lovely co-hosts, Spleenface.
Hi everyone, how's it going?
Sickrobot.
Hello, hello.
And Null04.
What's up, everyone?
So on this episode, maybe a bit late to the party, we're going to be doing a nice set review for War of the Spark. And let's hop right into housekeeping then. So unfortunately the timing of our last episode was a little bit awkward, such that we released it and recorded just days before a bunch of important things, namely the big cEDH tournament hosted by the Spike Feeders, or sponsored by the Spike Feeders.
Sponsored.
Yeah. It was organized by the mods of the cEDH subreddit.
A bunch of, so I think it was mainly Maynard and
yeah.
Shaper did a lot of work on it, which, like, big ups to them. I think it was organized very well.
Yeah, much better organization this time than any of our previous tournaments.
I think that's probably the smoothest tournament I've seen run so far.
Yeah, so we also had some cool live coverage. You know, just a little pat myself on the back there. On Scotty Knows Gaming's Twitch channel, it was streaming a live of the finals and day 2. Sorry, Scotty Knows MTG. That was Scotty Knows Gaming was his old name. So yeah, Scotty Knows MTG on his Twitch. They streamed day 2 and the finals, and we had myself, Scotty, and Null, Spleen, and I's IRL friend Turnip, who was casting, and so that was lots of fun. Hopefully, we'll have an opportunity to do something like that again in the future.
I think those VODs are still up too if you want to go watch them.
Oh yeah,
account. Totally can go.
Finals,
back and go through them.
Definitely, I recommend go checking out that finals game because that was awesome. Yeah,
sick.
Speaking of finals games and sick,
what a segue!
Yeah, the podcast's very own Sickrobot took the whole tournament.
Undefeated, baby.
Undefeated, 4-0 on Shuffle Hulk.
Yeah.
The finals pod, I'll just give a shout. That was Insert Clever Fairies, Pathograss, and Bobby.
Yeah.
Who were on Godo. It was a Vile Thrasios.
It's sort of like mid-range Hulk brew.
Yeah.
It was during the Vigilant Graph Mage thing combo.
And then Bobby was on PTSD.
Yeah.
As a really, really excellent game. Lots of tight gameplay to watch. Spleenface was also in that tournament playing Vannifar.
Okay. In fairness, I had dental surgery the morning of day 1. I had my wisdom teeth out, so I wasn't in my best form.
Yeah, it was you still did made day 2, so
yeah.
I guess it wasn't really organized such that there was like semifinals. But
there was a tiebreaker pod to decide the
4th
2
slot.
people who were 2 and 2 who would make it into the final spot, and I didn't quite get there, along with Pongo Pygmaeus of Team Turn 3.
Better luck next time. But yeah, so also the tournament was kind of interesting in some of the decks that we saw. You know, the tournament meta is not usually it's not what you're going to see on the rank ladder on any of the Discords or anything.
Everybody comes out of the woodworks with their own brews, and
there was a Lin Civi deck that made day 2, so that was quite spicy. Yeah.
There was a lot of Nagila. I was super surprised by the numbers of Nagila players, just because I didn't figure that was going to be like a deck that people were going to pick up. But I think we had like 4 to 5 Nagila players, which is like a huge amount for like a 32 odd player tournament.
But yeah, so congratulations to Sickrobot for taking that. And I was going to say Insert Clever Phrase was on Godo in the finals pod. Oh, yes. No, we already covered this. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so yeah, congratulations to Sick for taking that, and looking forward to the next tournament.
Yeah.
Last bit of housekeeping is we now have a Twitter and Patreon. So you can find us on Twitter at Into the North Podcast.
Sorry, quick correction. Our Twitter account is actually at Into the North Pod, because at Into the North Podcast is too long.
But and then you can also find us on Patreon, and we'll be linking that in the show notes for this episode. So we've got a couple of rewards that we've got going on there, and this is going to help us fund our hosting fees, upgrading audio equipment, maybe hiring an editor eventually. So
might be able to up content cadence.
Oh,
depending. Could definitely just help out in general.
Yeah, we consider producing more content based off interest shown on the Patreon. So go ahead and support us there if you'd like. And so let's jump into new developments then. So I'll kick things off with Scout's Warning for Shimmerzer. This is a new piece of tech that has been discussed on the Zur Discord server. And the idea being that you can replace your Aetherflux Reservoir WinCon with a Scout's Warning, because you can Scout's Warning in Labman at instant speed and then, clear your deck with a Demonic Consultation or draw it out with AdNauseam Angel's Grace and put a draw trigger on the stack. And being able to cut Aetherflux Reservoir, so it's still certainly being tested around, playing about, so people aren't sure if that's the route they want to go. But being able to slim down for a 4 CMC card that's kind of do nothing for a 1 CMC cantrip, not too bad. Okay, and so we'll kick things off to Sickrobot with the next new development.
Yeah, so next one, a deck that's sort of been running the rounds recently, and I think has had a bit of interest shown in it. Blue Pod, sort of a new take on, the Yisan pod archetype. That's sort of like what you usually see as like the combo package in a lot of non-black decks, but taken into partners. So it's a Bruce Tarl Thrasios deck that basically is just looking to use creature combos with like Yisan, Vannifar, Birthing Pod, that kind of stuff to make up for like the lack of black, because you have all the green creature tutors instead, which get all your combo pieces anyway, and then you can do all that kind of good stuff, like value engines as well, like Biomancer's Familiar, Training Grounds to discount Yisan activations and also like make it easier to use Thrasios. Looks pretty neat. You should probably check it out if that sounds interesting to you. I know Lurker has worked on it a bit, and forgetting his name, we'll link it. It's his list in the description. I tested it a bit. I think it's pretty neat. It definitely requires a change of mindset going into it from what I usually play, because it's more like, I'm just going to jam out my Yisan this turn and then activate it a bunch next turn and win the game, rather than like keeping all my stuff in hand.
Also kind of feels bad to be running Bruce Tarl and not being able to take advantage of it for like AdNauseam and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a big old beater, so that counts for something.
Yeah. 3/3 double striking is not nothing.
It's certainly better than Akiri.
And so then our next new development is the Shuffle Hulk primer.
It's published. It's finally there.
Long awaited.
Got it posted finally. It's been a long time in development. I know, I think people were asking for at least a write-up on Definitely Not Virals before this for a long time, and I think I was gonna get around to it just as the Shuffle pile got discovered, and then that got thrown out the window.
Yeah.
And it took a while to get back onto it. But it's out. It's out there. It's got all the stuff that you could ever ask for. It's stupidly comprehensive. I did not mean to write it that long, but it ended up getting there. So if you have any interest in Shuffle or Hulk or that kind of stuff in general, I'd just go check it out.
4-0'd the tournament, guys.
Yep.
He also 4-0'd the tournament without casting Flash.
Yes.
He didn't see Flash the whole tournament, so that's...
That's addressed in the primer.
Yeah.
I mean, it also won the Rank League for Season 1. Just saying.
Best deck in the format.
There's an argument to be made.
Yeah.
I am going to have to do some rehauling of it, some reworking of it for War, because War has some cool stuff in it that means I have to write out.
I feel like a lot of decks are gonna have to be reworked a bit.
But as it stands, it's pretty much accurate enough to get the job done, and I would check it out.
And speaking of primers, Spleenface,
we got a primer for Metapod, and that's sort of it's a new iteration on the Blood Pod Sans Blue Stacks deck. And it's by Infinite Imok and Lurker. And sort of what it looks to address is the advent of Hulk, the increased popularity of Hulk decks made the grindy plan of Bloodpod a little bit less viable. So they added in a whole bunch of ways to sort of combat that. They added in some more sort of value type cards. There's a Goblin Sharpshooter in there. which is pretty spicy. So essentially, the whole deck just looks to shift maybe a little bit away from the anti-storm, anti-artifact deck hate that was sort of the mainstay in the past, and a little bit more towards the creature Flash Hulk hate and ways to sort of make it harder for them to play the game, not just win. And that it also tries to make it a little bit more consistent on the combo, because the longer you go, the more likely it is that the Flash Hulk player finds Flash and Hulk, and then you lose.
Yep.
So
tale as old as time. And by I mean what has been a year?
26
yeah.
It feels like it's been
Yeah.
all the time.
And then finally we've got a nice article that was posted. So Noel, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, there was a thought-provoking analysis on Arcane Denial recently posted on the subreddit by username Zeus Awoken, I believe, and he kind of goes over the mathematical interpretation of card advantage in multiplayer games, and as well as comparing it to Legacy and other 1v1 formats.
Yes, it's nice how it ties in kind of to our last things we were talking about in our last episode. Yeah, lots of sort of a controversial article.
I think it brought out a lot of people's kind of opinions that have been, because I feel like for a while it's been said that Arcane Denial is not really viable in cEDH, and I guess there's a lot of kind of subtleness to it, and it gets brought out.
Yeah, I think, although I think the math is a bit flawed in that article, I think it does serve actually a pretty good role, a pretty needed role, which is just showing the other side of the argument for a lot of this stuff. Because when people enter the forum a lot, they have Arcane Denial in the first list, and they immediately get told that get it out, it's not a good card, don't play this card, and it never really gets explained past that, or there's never really an opinion expressed on Arcane Denial a lot of the time past just it's a bad card, don't run it. So I think it's good to get that side of the story, and then also give space for counter arguments and actually build a deeper understanding of why people don't run Arcane Denial, and why it's a possibility, even though it has some benefits, right? Because Arcane Denial isn't actually a terribly unplayable card. It's just it's not run for reasons that aren't really necessarily purely power level, specifically power level reasons, right? So
yeah, you should definitely go read that, and if you guys, any of you guys can come up with a better model for how you want to model card advantage, take a crack at it. I'd be very excited to read about it.
If you want to learn more about counter magic and cEDH, you can check out last episode 5 of the North Podcast.
Yeah, just give it another re-listen. Pump up those YouTube views.
Gets better the third time.
Yeah. Okay, so let's hop into our set review for War of the Spark.
All right, we got a lot to talk about here.
Yeah. So we're gonna start by kind of covering a set of cards that are possibly on the fringes, or that are going to be we think are going to be less impactful to the core cEDH establishment. Yeah. So we'll go through those a bit quicker, and then we're gonna spend some time talking about some more specific cards. So I'll kick things off with Bolsa Citadel, which is 3 and 3 black. It's a legendary artifact. It reads: you may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play the top card of your library. If you cast a spell this way, pay life equal to its converted mana cost rather than pay its mana cost. And it has a tap ability for tap, sacrifice 10 non-land permanents. Each opponent loses 10 life. Okay, so
there's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
But is there really? The paying life mana cost, obviously reminiscent of AdNauseam.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. AdNauseam does not cheat mana cost by allowing you to pay life.
Does not.
But it sort of reads like an AdNauseam
Paying
where
life
you're
for
just
cards.
paying life for cards.
Yeah, the AdNauseam decks certainly don't have a hard time with mana costs once it's resolved, right? Those decks are meant to.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily agree that. I think that the fact that this does cheat on mana costs definitely makes it different. It
certainly makes it different. Yeah.
It certainly has drawbacks, most notably lands.
Yeah. That's the thing that I think is just killer for this card.
Well, it's for any we've seen this like so much for like any Future Sight like combo-ish deck where like first of all like this has like the same kind of restrictive mana cost. Obviously it's a bit easier to cheat on this mana cost with Dark Ritual and Cabal Ritual versus like blue stuff where you only really have High Tide. But like again, still super restrictive mana cost here. And then like you're just banking on not hitting a patch of lands, which just like once you're getting through a bunch of your library, like you can only reasonably have so many shuffle effects in play and so many like cantrips to burn through those before like you just like burn so much gas to try to get through.
It's also something you have to cast at sorcery speed.
Well, I think a similar kind of drawback that AdNauseam has is like you can hit a large patch of high CMC cards, but this is nowhere compared. This is a much worse drawback.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to.
It's a hard stop. Once you take 15 on the first 5 cards of your AdNauseam, you can still keep going.
Yeah, and then but also with Citadel is you're forced to stop, and you don't have the advantage of being at sorcery speed or being at instant speed. Sorry.
Yeah, so you can't play it and then untap.
Also that, but with. The thing with AdNauseam, why AdNauseam works is because you get all of the cards at once. With Bolsa Citadel, you have to cast them in order, right? So if you see your payoff card first before any of your mana, like you're like, okay, I'm going to stick this thing and I'm going to try to hit like a bunch of mana rocks into an Aetherflux Reservoir, and you just flip Aetherflux Reservoir immediately off the top or whatever, right? It's just like, well, I hit like Reservoir and then like I don't hit any other cards, or like I hit like all of my other cards and then I'm too low to make use of Reservoir effectively.
Also with
AdNauseam, say hitting Reservoir first is a
downside. It's a downside for Bolsa Citadel, but it's just stuff like you don't necessarily have a say in the order that you're hitting stuff in. Where like there are definitely awkward times where like you hit the wrong piece for combo first, and
you
it's
hit
just
dramatic
like,
reversal early, and that feels.
It's also just much easier to build your deck around a card like AdNauseam, where you're just minimizing your average CMC. Whereas Bolsa Citadel, you have to start cutting lands, and you can only go so low there.
Yeah. We don't have MTG Arena mulligans to enable us to run the equivalent of 13 lands.
Come faster, London Mulligan, I need you. So, sorry, just a note before we get off this. Okay. One cool thing that I've seen, and I think it's sort of being, it has sort of been tested, and I think maybe not the best, but still worth mentioning. I know Wedge has been, not Wedge from the main source, but Wedge on the
cEDH Wedge.
cEDH Wedge.
Yeah, the Birthing Pod.
Wedge, Birthing Pod fame, all that good stuff. Has been brewing Circulist, like a Circu Stormlist with this, because what it lets you do is if you have Circuit already, you can clear lands from the top of your library or clear dead cards with Citadel. Okay. So like you don't necessarily have to worry as much about lands or counter magic being stuck on top, because like you sort of have a way in the command zone to burn through them. And I think he's sort of that said that like he wants to cut Citadel after playing the time. But I do think it's a neat way to abuse like Future Sight and Citadel effects, is like put them into a deck where like you can actually take advantage of your commander to clear stuff off the top of them.
Also, one thing I want to say is it's not. There are lots of cards that if you hit them before you get stuck, you can essentially guarantee a win. So the obvious one is Top. Top Future Sight has been a combo, usually involving some sort of cost reducer. This just Top plus this essentially becomes Yawgmoth's Bargain, which I've heard is a pretty good card.
Not too bad.
It's all right.
That it also obviously any tutor if you have the 1 minute to cast the top, but also any top deck tutor definitely lets you do some pretty spicy stuff. I think that you will whiff enough that it probably won't be worth it, but like I was testing it in Sad Farm, which is the Esper the Esper Turbo AdNauseam farm deck, and most of the time I landed it. I was able to get there. Maybe it's possible you come to the conclusion that you don't want it and AdNauseam in the deck, but it's not a lost cause.
I think it's sort of like is the whiff rate like high enough, like, or rather is the whiff rate low enough that you can compare it to AdNauseam? And if it's not, then like there's sort of like an alternate there.
We spent way more time on this card than we should have.
Plan to.
Moving on.
And it looks pretty cool too.
Let's just talk about the card art a bit. So moving on, Spleenface. What's our next card?
Our next card is Horde Arcanist. It is a creature zombie wizard. It is a 1/3 with trample for 1 and a red, and it has when Horde Arcanist attacks, you may you may cast target instant or sorcery card with converted mana cost less than or equal to Horde Arcanist power from your graveyard without paying its mana cost. If that card would be put into your graveyard this turn, exile it instead. So it lets you buy back an instant or sorcery for free with CMC less than or equal to its power, which starts at 1, but could potentially change.
Yeah. So I don't think this card is ever going to be like I don't think you're ever getting this to 2 power, right? Like
there's not too many things that are going to modulate your power level the powers of your creatures in cEDH.
So I think you're looking at like how can you abuse this with like 1 CMC and 0 CMC stuff.
Cantrips.
The place that I was sort of interested in this for, and obviously people are like the diehards for this deck are going to be like, no, this is worthless. Why would you ever play this? But I think in Yidris this would be interesting because you're already running all the suspend stuff, right? So like you already have Ancestral Vision, you already have Wheel of Fate, you already have Lotus Bloom, all that good stuff. And like basically,
Lotus Bloom wouldn't work as instance.
Oh, sorry, yeah. But like you're running all this like low CMC stuff anyway because you want to capitalize on the Cascade really well. So like it lets you like double up on those effects, and like you're also just like getting cantrips back every time you're swinging with it. Yeah. Another thing to note about this is actually pretty cool too. Is it doesn't actually have to connect. So you can swing into an untapped Tymno with this, and they block, but you're just like, okay, I'm gonna get my trigger anyway. And draw my thing. So you don't necessarily actually have to be able to get through.
It's also got that magical stat line that blocks Tymno well. Yeah. Okay, I don't think there's too much more to be said about this card. Yeah. So, Sickrobot, what about our next card on the list?
I think our next cards... Okay, well, we'll do one, yeah. We'll cover Emergent Zone, I guess, which is land, comes in untapped, tap, add colorless, 1 tap, sacrifice Emergent Zone. You may cast spells this turn as though they had flash. So this is like...
I'll just take the floor here, okay? So this is probably most relevant for Gitrog decks. So there's... Right now, I talked about Dread Chaining in our last episode, was it?
Yeah.
So that's kind of making the predominant win con amongst the Gitrog. A lot of the Gitrog players are moving to win cons that are instant speed and black to take advantage of Dread Chaining. And then the second win con, like just below that, would be win conless, which is where you're looping like your hand attack spells and you're not really using a payoff card, looping Ulamog and Assassin's Trophy and all that. Now, Emergent Zone is useful for for instant speed wins. You can sacrifice it, and you don't need to use something like Savage Summoning to loop Ulamog. And it allows you to loop hand attack at the end step, which is something that's kind of been an issue with the win conless in the past, where you'd be able to destroy everyone's permanents, but you can't really affect their hand, and so you'd be a bit wary on whether or not that was a guaranteed kill. Emergent Zone, first of all, cuts back on that deck slot, so you can just cut a land and it's pretty much free, even though it's colorless, which is not the best, but
rough.
Basically free. And then it allows you to like loop hand attack and all that jazz at instant speed. I think it's sort of comparable to Sunscorched Desert.
Ish, around there.
It's Sunscorched Desert with better utility.
Yeah. Effectively what I was saying. I think Emergent Zone is sort of neat for specifically high-cost, low-color commanders.
Yeah, I mean, the other deck that's talking about it is Godo.
Yeah.
So,
which is neat. It lets you split the cost over multiple turns more effectively.
Yeah, and it's, Godo has tested with Winding Canyons in the past. That's just the way. But the important thing is that it also, Emergent Zone lets you cast spells. So Winding Canyons is only creatures, and so it would let you split the cost of Godo and Equipping Helm. But Emergent Zone lets you, if you have like a Magnetic Theft or even just any of your sorcery speed, like Twin Flame Heat Shimmer, it allows you to Emergent Zone in Godo to try to play around opportunities where counter magic is low.
You can also so you could use this to flash in Hammer Design on an end step as well, which also lets you cheat cost, but...
Oh, yeah, just flashing in any cost reducers, yeah.
Yeah, but like specifically like Hammer of Design I think is really cool because you can get it into play without like people knowing that you can win next turn. Because like you can go into the turn without necessarily like having the 8 mana up to cast Godo. Like you can just have 6 mana up to crack the emergent zone +1.
Oh yeah,
and
but
play
it's
the
Hammer of
right?
Nazan,
Yeah.
Panharmonicon,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
any of those effects.
Brass Squire.
Brass
Yeah,
Squire,
Brass Squire,
yeah,
man.
nice, it'll work.
Dude, it's only 5 mana Brass Squire. Let's go.
Yeah, and I think those are the only decks that are.
Yeah,
looking
I
at
can't really
Emergent
imagine
Zone.
seeing this in anything else.
Yeah, I don't think you'd want it in like
No.
Teferi or you just want
No. Speaking of Teferi,
A new up-and-coming mono blue commander who's
a
competitive.
couple of them.
I have a couple.
Well, let's
Really?
start with one, right?
All right.
Yeah,
So the next one we're talking about is Fibblethip the Lost for 1 and a blue legendary creature, Homunculus. When Fibblethip the Lost enters the battlefield, draw a card. If it entered from your library or was cast from your library, draw 2 cards instead. When it becomes the target of a spell, shuffle it in. Shove it in.
just shove it in your
Just shove it
library.
in.
into its owner's library
Yeah.
for a 1/1. So it doesn't block Timna, but
It does not. Downside.
it
Chumps.
provides interesting combo potential with cards like Proteus Staff.
Yep.
Is there anything else besides
No.
Proteus Staff?
It's just
No.
about Proteus Staff.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
With just
Yeah.
Proteus Staff, and a reasonably okay mana, like a reasonable amount of mana.
Yeah. You split.
I
8
mean,
mana over
just
2
to
turns.
dump it into play, for 1 and a blue to cantrip to
Yep.
split the cost. That's not hard, right?
Nope.
Yeah,
I'll definitely find the times to do that.
it has like a reasonably comparable deck building restriction to Teferi, which is like creatureless, but you kind of don't have to go full on artifacts, but Teferi kind of has to go full on artifacts.
Well, the downside is you miss out on one of your tutors that you can't run because you'd like to run. Is it Treasure Mage or Trophy Mage?
Trophy
Trophy
Mage, yeah.
Mage, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'd like to run,
Unfortunately-
yeah.
So I guess
that's
we should
rough.
probably explain Proteus Staff.
Yeah.
It puts a.
It's
you
just
put a
3
creature
cost
card-
artifact
Yeah.
with the ability for 2 and a blue, tap Proteus Staff.
You put a
Shuffle
creature on the
or,
bottom.
yeah,
You put it on the bottom of your library. You reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put it into play, and then you put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order.
Yes.
So if there isn't a creature in your deck when you put a creature into your deck, you get that creature back, and you get to stack your library.
Yeah, so
And
Flibblethip
lets
yeah.
you draw 2 cards immediately after stacking your library.
And so
which
there's a
is
great
pretty
Reddit
good.
post about just all the
Yeah,
different
we-
piles
yeah,
that you can.
We worked it out in the Fibblethip server for.
Oh, there's a
while.
Flibblethip server.
There is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So Fibblethip. So I did a lot of the initial brewing
Okay.
on Fibblethip in that community. I did a lot of the testing on it. I sort of haven't really touched it recently, but I know the general basics. The idea is like you just get
LED
Proteus Staff.
piles.
Well, yeah. So
Yeah.
you basically Proteus Staff, do Mono Blue Doomsday to stack 98 cards into whatever order you want, and then use Fibblethip as the pile cracker for 2. So the one that a lot of people use right now is you do Gush LED to make it free after the activation. So you do Gush LED, crack LED with Gush, and then you get a Mana Crypt and a Future Sight. And then you play the Future Sight off of all the mana that you have, and then you basically just go through mana positive rocks and stuff, and then just assemble either Icecrown Reversal off the top. Easy, just go Icecrown, cast a cantrip, like cast a Gift Probe, get the thing into hand.
Yeah, possibly
that.
meta dependent.
Or you
That's
do-
up to your own.
What's
meta.
what's the win outlet? Is it just a Jace?
So it's either I haven't really liked the Jace or the Labman. You can do
You can't do Labman obviously because of the creature.
Yeah, you can do Labman stuff, but you can do so I think what a lot of people are looking at right now is just Blue Sun Zenith, because you can do infinite mana and then you just Blue Sun Zenith people to death, and because Fibblethip acts as your draw outlet if you have untaps, because you can just Proteus Staff him.
Yeah.
With every Icecrown on tap, put him back in the deck, draw 2 cards, keep doing that.
Okay, yeah.
You have no issue getting back to the Blue Sun Zenith. You can also do it with a Paradox Scepter on top. Or, sorry, Paradox Engine on top, because you just draw your deck with Future Sight, do all that good stuff.
Okay.
Yep.
Interesting. We'll see if that deck puts up any numbers if people start playing with that.
To note, though, there are a couple differences from Teferi weaknesses-wise, in that you can't play Grafdigger's Cage, which is
you definitely
rough.
Yeah.
And then also, Fibblethip's ability that triggers when he's targeted by a spell means that you can't actually combo through a removal spell, because your counter magic doesn't work because he shuffles himself in anyway. So say like you land a Proteus Staff and activate target Fibblethip, and somebody just targets him with
like
anything in response, you can't really protect against that, because your counter magic, you can counter the removal spell, but he's still going to shuffle himself in.
Pretty Staff's target, right?
It is.
Yeah.
But the shuffle clause is only spell.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so our next card on this list is God Eternal Kefnet. It costs 2 and 2 blue. It is a legendary creature, zombie god. It's a 4/5 with flying, and it reads, you may reveal the first card you draw each turn as you draw it. Whenever you reveal an instant or sorcery card this way, copy that card, and you may cast that copy. That copy costs 2 generic less to cast. When God Eternal Kefnet dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, you may put it into its owner's library, third from the top. Okay, so why is God Eternal Kefnet on this list?
So, this is another hypothetical potential to Ferry replacement in the mono blue commander category.
We're all looking for it.
Yeah, there's a lot of Ferry hate going around.
I just want a commander that doesn't die to creature beats.
This one doesn't die to creature beats.
We'll go over first. The main draw to God Eternal Kefnet is you do have a fairly compact win condition, which is you have any extra turn spell, and then you have a scroll rack or a repeatable shuffle effect, or rather stack effect. Basically,
the Mind Sculptor does it.
all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Repeatable Brainstorm does it. Basically, you put an extra turn spell on top of your library, and then every turn, Kefnet reveals it off the top. You copy it without actually having to spend the card. So you get the extra turn, get it into your hand, and then put it back on top and just keep doing that. So it's not actually that hard. There's a fair number of blue extra turn spells, and I mean, Scroll Rack is like fairly easily tutorable in mono blue. It's an artifact, costs 2. It's a good card on its own. I think the main reason why people are looking at this over to Ferry, even though it's a 2-card combo rather than the 1-card combo, is because Kefnet is actually like a value engine that you can stick early and sit on.
It's a great value.
And it doesn't get beat to death by creatures. In fact, it does the beating to death because it's a
4/5 flyer
for
4. What?
Which blocks. It doesn't have to attack to generate value either. So you just get to sit on a 4/5, block Timnus for days, and then just generate value every turn.
Dude, rest in peace, Tim. That card is never going to see play
Yeah.
again.
Just unplayable.
In the new Kefnet meta.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do think there's arguments for it though. Like it definitely has upsides. I think this is the
I just
more
feel like
likely
it's
of the
going to
two.
whiff. It can whiff on value a lot of
So-
times.
so
like, you
You can
That is
also
the
play
argument.
miracles.
but like, so you're
Into Windfall. Oh, you cast Flash, opt Windfall. God.
Got there.
But the thing is that you've got your whiff on all your lands, you whiff on all your artifacts, you whiff on counter spells. Off it's just for value.
You don't necessarily whiff off counterspells.
Okay, this is true. With instant speed draw, you do get to use counterspells for free on opponent's turns. So if you go like Brainstorm, draw counterspells the first card on somebody else's turn, you can cast that without actually having to use the counterspell.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Anything else to say about God Eternal Kefnet?
I don't think so.
Okay. So Spleenface, our next card.
Our next card is Lilianas Triumph. So it's an instant that casts for 1 and a black, and it says, each opponent sacrifices a creature. If you control a Liliana Planeswalker, each opponent also discards a card. That second clause, not super relevant.
Not relevant.
Most people don't want to be playing Liliana Planeswalkers. But this is the first 2-mana edict that hits all your opponents and not you.
Which
at
is
instant speed.
really interesting. In my opinion. I know, okay. I know there's some
dorks
skepticism.
thought meta?
Okay, alright. So, what my interest in this card comes more from the fact that it gives us, like, a more diverse playset of, like, removal stuff that we can play. So, like, where I really like Liliana's Triumph is, like, so, obviously, my own experience, my decks that I play, for, like, something like 4-color Rashmi, it's really appealing to me because it's another removal spell that I get at instant speed to trigger Rashman to trigger Vile on other people's turns to get my draws with a Curiosity.
Okay, and you just it's like a if you're hitting just a bunch of dork decks, it's like triple Stone Rain.
It's like a pseudo Pyroclasm sometimes, but also for like stuff like it's really good against stuff like Zur, against like commander reliant non-green decks like Zur, Kess. So in those metas, I think it's really cool that you can like start swapping out Clasms for this effect instead.
Yeah. Okay.
Where like when Clasms get less valuable, you instead get to slot in like a symmetrical thing that just kills people's commanders outright as soon as they stick them. I think it's also like fairly playable against like combo-y greed decks. So like stuff like if you look at like Gitrog when they go like fast Gitrog off of like a Dark Red or something like that, you can just be like, no, get out of here. And even
yeah, sure, but like I think that's one of the least.
Sure,
most
yeah,
of the time, you're gonna have a dork in play to
yeah.
protect against.
I'm just saying, like, the fail
isolate
case of
yourself
like
from this
killing
triumph.
dorks is also not bad. And
Yeah.
then, like, because like when you're casting a Clasm on turn 2, you're
It's to
usually
kill the
still
dorks,
only
yeah.
getting like one dork apiece for everybody, but that's
Yeah.
still like good enough, right? Whereas with Lilianas Triumph, you can be playing dorks and then also cast this and get everybody else's without killing your own.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. So probably just in 4-color Ratchet control decks.
I look at it in like something like cast maybe. I think it could be
like a
interesting
double
addition.
casting it twice is
getting
nice
it
appeal,
right
yeah.
where like you get the like the throwaway dork, then you also get the Timna and like the get wrong.
Yeah, because like
right?
in casting double Pyroclasm is not that appealing.
Casting Massacre Cast Massacre is the best feeling in the world. But,
Yeah.
so
yeah, it's
language
interesting.
that leaves
Maybe
the
in like a task or control.
Like again, I don't think it's like this like huge thing. Like I don't think it's like gonna be like
Toxic
the
Deluge
new best
2.0.
thing. But, like, I
Toxic Deluge at instant
Ascension
speed.
good.
I definitely do think that this has applications in a specific number of decks, and I don't think people should be overlooking it when looking at the removal suite.
That makes sense. Okay, so Sick, what is our next card on the list?
I believe our next card is Ral Storm Conduit. Now this one's a bit of a meme. All right. Legendary Planeswalker Ral for 2 blue and red. Starts with 4 loyalty. He has a passive, which is whenever you cast or copy an instant or sorcery spell, Ral Storm Conduit deals 1 damage to target opponent or Planeswalker. He has a +2 Scry 1 and a -2. When you cast your next instant or sorcery spell this turn, copy that spell. You may choose new targets for the copy. So there is a combo with this card, believe it or not.
Of course there
apparently.
is.
There's a combo with
There's
everything.
lots of it. Dude, is Deadeye Navigator, Palancron, CEDH playable.
Yeah, it's
2-card combo.
So Ral says when you cast or copy, which means when you say copy a chain effect, such as, I don't know, Chain of Smog.
Classic Chain of Smog. Okay,
CEDH All-Star.
so before everyone's jumping in on this meme of Chain of Smog, I just want to say, Gitrog players we've known about this Chain of Smog, this meme for a while. Okay, so in Gitrog you can use Chain of Smog as repeatable discard outlet by repeatedly targeting yourself with Chain of Smog. It's not the first time this card has been brought up in the CEDH context.
Wow.
So
certainly it's not good enough, but it's just
the
a meme, but yeah.
The idea here is you have a Ral Storm Conduit in play. You cast a Chain of Smog targeting yourself. You discard your hand and continuously copy Chain of Smog to target yourself, and just use Ral to ping people to death. So notably, it gets around pretty much every hate piece ever.
Yeah?
Just about. Not exactly exciting considering we have one of those that's sort of consult, does that already, been there. But, I mean, if you're on Planeswalkers...
Dude, 4 mana Scry 1.
I mean, 4 mana down to copy something.
I thought it was Scry 2. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
I mean, it has 6 loyalty when you do that. It's probably sticking around a turn.
Oh, you're right. Sorry, 4 mana Scry 1 every turn.
Isn't that like just...
A card?
What?
I think there's a card.
No,
Thassa is
Thassa.
3 mana, Scry 1 of
No,
return.
but there's
No,
what's
no,
the
no.
Sphinx? The Sphinx of New Pro, right?
What's her name? The Planeswalker. There's a Planeswalker that does this and deals damage.
Saheeli's uptick.
Yeah, Saheeli, the 3 mana
Correct.
Saheeli's uptick does it and deals damage.
Okay, so I think that also this card will be put in a lot of
The Sphinx of Force.
the blue-red hard mode fun storm decks that aren't actually really like top tier, but people experiment with them over and over again. You know, your Mizzix, Melek, Arjun, or Niv to lesser degrees.
There's that
For
Saheeli
the copy.
brew with
For the
Finale
down tick
Scramble.
copy, I'm assuming.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
For the down tick copy, and it actually enables, like, if you're running copy spells in your deck already, which a lot of those decks do, you can set up, if you can double cast a copy spell, you just win the game by repeatedly targeting the first copy of the copy
because
spell.
Ra will deal damage
Because Ra will
every
deal
time you
damage.
copy.
So it might go in those decks, but those decks really suffer from not having black in them.
Yeah. And you're just not finding the Ra.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess we're going to move on to our last of the of these I don't want to say chaff card. No.
Well, second last.
Second
Yeah.
last. Okay.
So this one is Teferi, Time Reveler. For 1 white and a blue, legendary Planeswalker Teferi has a static ability. Each opponent can cast spells only time they can cast a sorcery. Has a +1 until your next turn. You may cast sorcery spells as though they had flash. A -3. Return up to 1 target artifact, creature, or enchantment to its owner's hand. Draw a card at 4 loyalty. Yeah.
So
this
I think
obviously has the Doran problem, right? Or
Doran?
Dozen.
No,
Dozen.
Dozen. Yeah.
the Dosen problem. that-
Doran the Siege
Sorry.
Tower.
There are no problems with Doran.
Perfect card.
Flawless
They
card,
should have
yeah.
stopped when they were ahead.
3 mana 5/5. What? No, but yeah,
This has like the defense grid.
yeah,
Dozen
defense grid
problem, right?
Dozen
Which
problem.
is you cast this, you don't have sufficient counter magic. The flash talk player just goes cast flash.
yeah.
Now, notably, this does stop people from protecting their own win cons on their turns because it doesn't lock people to their own turns. It locks people to sorcery speed. But still, it's like as soon as you play this Teferi, you are now locked to being the only person at the table that can stop.
That's a big burden that you don't want to shoulder in CEDH. Hard to stave off three players simultaneously. Now, I think the most important aspect of this and why it's just probably not going to see any play is because there's a better card that does this and doesn't have those problems, and that card is Grand Abolisher.
Yes,
and it's
for protecting your own win.
Yes, for protecting your own win cons. I say cheaper. It is cheaper, but it is double white, which is sometimes hard to cast.
Yep.
But it's just basically this affects and all that. It's
and also Grand Abolisher can't get beat to death by creatures. Where notably, like Teferi starts pretty high, yeah.
Teferi also basically cantrips on ETB, right? Because with his minus.
Sure,
he doesn't draw cards if you have Timna out, so
yeah.
It's just
but he bounces Timbers.
It's just
yeah.
I don't think you can guarantee having the amount of interaction that you would need.
But what if you Teferi for protection and you bounce your own Soul Ring or Mana Crypt? Oh, the value. It makes mana.
Get those rituals.
Yeah.
And then I think we have one more here. Spleen, if you want to cover this.
Sure. Our last card is Mayhem Devil. And it is a creature devil, 3/3 for 1 black and a red. Whenever a player sacrifices a permanent, Mayhem Devil deals 1 damage to any target. So the first use case for this is it's an outlet for Food Chain Crush. That's probably more useful than whichever one they're currently running. That's the worst. Which are they still on Impact Tremors or have they?
Yeah, whatever. But the point is, like, 1 mana, or, sorry, 3 mana, but also creature outlet, right?
Yeah, it's
like,
also creature outlet.
Yeah.
The other thing that makes this sort of different from a lot of similar creature dies, hurt people effects, is it does say any target.
Yep.
So someone cracks a fetch land, you can ping your dork off.
Just another nail in the coffin for Teferi.
Just Teferi, in response, crack 5 fetches, kill it.
No, then you just get them. You get them when they're on the last counter.
Yeah.
Yes.
yeah.
I can definitely see the argument for this. I mean, like, it hates on, like, cult piles sometimes. Like, if you're not, like... Actually, I guess it does get through Grand Abolisher, doesn't it?
Yeah,
because
it just puts the trigger on the side. Yeah,
it's a trigger.
And to note, it does say whenever a player sacrifices, so this triggers off of anybody's fetches.
Yeah.
Which is sort of neat.
Yeah. Just chain gun down or machine gun down a bunch of dwarves.
Yeah.
Also,
I can definitely see this in Bloodpod as well. Actually,
yeah.
I think.
In Metapod, like it's sort of similar to the Goblin Sharpshooter, and
well,
you can crack in that you're
yes.
running it to kill the dorks,
sure.
And you can crack a fetch, ping off the mind sensor, and still find your land.
The dead there.
Yeah.
The value.
I
think it's sort of neat as just like a continual dork pinger, though.
Yeah.
Would you ever consider putting curiosity effects on it?
I was okay. That was
Yes.
something that I was actually. That was one of the only reasons why I was considering this for 4-color Rashmi is like I'm not exactly enthused by like the oh my god, it hates on combos like I'm picking off Doris, because we're on, like, whatever, plasms and whatever anyway. But the fact that you can put a Curiosity on it and crack fetches and draw cards, you basically just build your own Gitrog. Easy.
Also, one other thing I did want to say is that you can certainly make life really tricky for Thrasios Tymna mirrors, because 2/2s and 1/3s have some interesting blocking and attacking dynamics that Mayhem Devil definitely lets you interfere with. So that's like another,
Yep. You can politic your way.
You can politic your way. Tymna attacking with into a Thrasios. What happens, right?
Who I get a kill? Yeah.
Oh, maybe you kill off the Thrasios. Maybe you kill off the Tymna. Like both of those let you sort of leverage.
Yeah. Okay, so let's get into some of the juicier cards of this set.
Yeah.
So Sick, why don't you kick things off with the first card on the list?
Yeah. So this is Ashiok Dreamrender.
Sorry, it's how do you read that? Because like the card art is just bleeding over onto the
They all have
everywhere.
Yeah.
It's all over. Legendary Planeswalker Ashiok for 1 and hybrid blue-black. Has the passive ability, spells and abilities your opponents control can't cause their controller to search their library. Base loyalty 5, -1 as target player puts the top 4 cards of the library into their graveyard, then exile each opponent's graveyard. So, this is exactly what we needed. We needed a cheaper Stranglehold for blue and black.
It's a cheaper fixed Stranglehold.
Yeah, there you go.
It's a fair Stranglehold.
Yes.
Yeah.
because it doesn't make allows them to still find lands off of a path and like Ghost Quarter, like
and Assassin's
Yeah,
Trophy.
Assassin's Trophy. There's plenty of examples.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was gonna say like Path and Ghost Quarter don't see play, so it's not.
Assassin's Trophy definitely.
Assassin's
Yeah.
Trophy does see
So
play.
they can get it from your Assassin's Trophy.
And other opponents.
Yes, because it's cards they control.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Notably, okay, so obviously, great, like 3 mana Stranglehold, good card. We already know that Aven Mind Sensor sees a lot of play. Obviously, there's some reason there, like, between, like, Flash and being a Tymna-Duder is pretty good. But also just, like, being, like, a hard Stranglehold lock.
Yeah.
For specifically those colors, maybe you don't have white and you want that effect. Maybe you don't want to pay the full cost for Stranglehold. 4 mana is a lot. It also has, like, the incidental Grave Hate on the down tick, which is pretty good.
The down tick is also relevant in that you can just get people.
Yep.
Like, you're going to
You
hit the
catch
Get Rock
people
player and you're
asleep.
like, oh, there's Zachmore, goodbye.
See ya. It does, because it does mill and exile in the same ability, so like it just triggers
You can also after someone like casts an Imp Seal on their turn, you just slam
just mill it
Ashiok
over.
and then down tick, mill them.
It's not bad.
Yeah.
I do think the downside that I think a lot of people aren't going to initially see with this, and there's sort of a limitation on playing Ashiok here, is that, again, you can beat Ashiok to death. And
you need blockers to defend.
In a meta with, like, Kess, which is a flying 3/4, and a lot of Tymna decks, if you can't defend it adequately, you're going to lose the Ashiok, like, within the first turn cycle, and you're just going to have paid 3 mana for pretty much nothing.
Yeah, 3 mana for
a fog.
Bajuka Bog.
Yeah.
5 life. Oh, baby.
But that being said, in decks that can adequately defend an Ashiok, so like basically if you could just put a Thrasios in the board consistently, or just put an X3 down, and just block Tymnas for a bit at least, I think this is going to be really valuable.
This is going to see play in 4-color Rashmi.
100%.
Yeah.
Opus
We were already Opus Thief as well. We were already looking at like playing at like testing Stranglehold.
Okay.
And like this got spoiled, and we were just like, well, I guess we're just playing this now because like
easy.
we're the anti-dork deck. And then we also just have X3s in the command zone that we can just block for days with.
Does anything else need to be said about Ashiok? I don't know. I feel like it's just
goes
a
in
solid
overdrive.
card.
I think like
You can mill yourself in a deck that wants to do that.
Yes.
Like
because it only exiles
potentially
opponent
Kess.
stuff. Note also for 4-color Rashmi and also other stuff that wants to play it. This is also an outlet for Scepter stuff because you can bounce Scepter, replay Scepter, put a bounce spell on Scepter.
Oh,
And then if you're doing like double Scepter or Scepter Paradox,
Copy artifact.
Yeah. And then you can bounce Ashiok, replay it, mill somebody, exile the stuff, so you can get through like shufflers and whatever, and just keep doing that.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
So, Noel, you want to get the next card on the list?
Yes.
This card is a
particularly
good
exciting
one.
for this one.
Yeah.
When I saw it spoiled, I immediately drew up a proxy because I wanted to get my hands on it right away. This is Dovin's Veto. For white and a blue, instant. This spell can't be countered. Counter target non-creature spell.
So
My God.
So first of all, we don't see the line of text. This spell can't be countered a lot. I think there are like probably under 10 cards total that had that line, right? I don't think there were
Vexing
Shusher. They've stopped
yeah.
using it recently.
Yeah.
It's definitely.
So like
something.
so
There was a cycle of 5 from Return to Ravnica, right? So
Sure.
that's already.
Miscutter. Oh.
but it's already very rare to see a this can't be counter thing, and then you tack that on to a negate.
I don't know, man.
Yeah, I think
When I'm
it's-
playing my
it's
Tygam
not-
deck,
it's
all
still
my
the-
decks have that.
It's
text.
only
They
2
could
mana.
very easily have made this one. They could very
Yeah.
easily have made this one 3 mana.
Yeah, this one could have been white,
Yeah.
blue, blue, like
Yeah.
100%, right?
Yeah, comparable to Counterflux, I guess.
Yeah.
In some way.
But the fact that like we just have this like uncounterable negate now
Yeah.
for blue white.
Yeah.
Have you ever played Flash Hulk and wanted to know what it felt like to have your Labman Abrupticate in the middle of
Yeah,
comboing?
yeah.
Well, now you can have the exact same experience by just having your Flash countered with no
That's actually,
recourse.
like,
Yeah.
a great parallel.
It's the
It matches
karmic equivalent.
perfectly.
Yeah.
The important thing here, though, is that this is much better as a defensive counterspell.
Okay.
Yeah.
like-
So by defensive, I mean you're not trying to combo off. An offensive counterspell is something that we usually call like for you're casting your flash and
Yes.
your pact of negation is a
Yes.
good offensive counterspell.
Yeah.
But if you're on the defense,
It's a much better
Stopping yourself from
counterspell
dying.
when
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
on defense.
Yes,
That's
there
a
you
better
go.
way
Yeah.
of putting
Yeah.
it.
But there is a card that helps you get around Dovin's veto, which is coming up later.
There is. Continue.
Oh, yes. Yeah, okay, that's right. Taking a look at our cards here, I was like, what is this? What? Okay, yes. Yeah, well, we'll get to that. That's usually, I think, last on our list. Okay, so yeah, Dovin's Veto, good card.
Yeah, just
Goes in just
Yeah,
about every deck that
most
can
thing.
run it, yeah, except unless you're trying to be the aggressor.
Yeah.
So probably not going to go into Shuffle Hulk.
Also, probably not going to go into Sacred Hulk.
yes.
Yeah.
you know.
Yes.
Feels right. You know, just
That's an easy
missing
mistake
white
to
is
make.
it's getting more painful and more painful every day.
Yeah, okay, so next card on our list.
Speaking of Sacred Hulk.
Okay, next card on the list is Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. It has a casting cost of 1 triple blue. It is a legendary planeswalker Jace. It has the static ability. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. So that is Labman ability. Then it has a +1. Target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard. Draw a card. -8. Draw 7 cards. Then if your library has no cards in it, you win the game. And it has 4 loyalty. So you're thinking, what? I already my Labman costs 2 and a blue. Why would I make the casting cost more for this? Oh, you sweet summer child.
Remember that time when you got your Labman Abrupticate?
Yeah.
Remember that time when your Labman didn't draw a card?
Yeah. Remember that time in when you were playing Cass and it was really a 1 card. You know the whole meme of the 1 card combo with the Demonic Consultation. You cast your Demonic Consultation, you find your Labman, then you flash back your Demonic Consultation, your library's empty. But wait, you don't have any cantrips in your hand. Yes. Well, Jace Wielder of Mysteries is here to solve that problem.
Notably also solves that problem through Memories Journey sometimes. If you have like another cantrip in hand where like you can thought scour yourself.
Oh,
so, like,
yeah, true.
if somebody tries to put stuff back
or
on, so
through Noxious
like it
Revival.
Yeah.
just clears it through Noxious Revival, which is like just hilarious. Like it's just
They finally
It's
fixed
too-
Labman.
Yeah.
Yeah, just everything that you could ask for. I mean, except for casting.
Except
cost,
for the
obviously,
triple
but-
blue, because typically decks that are on like this Labman package are on Consult and Tainted Pact,
Yes.
and a Tainted Pact mana base casting a Jace Wielder of Mysteries is
Rough.
that's
Then again, just as a consideration, you can sort of look at it like Jace includes the cantrip in the card.
oh yeah.
So like you can, it's sort of like
It's basically if Labman was 1 and 2 blue.
yeah,
Yeah.
basically right because you would be using the blue a lot of the time anyway as the
And
cantrip.
the extra blues for the Noxious Revival and
Yeah.
Journey Protection.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
That's your Dispel.
the something that's just nice about this card as well is that in stalled out game states, drawing a Labman feels bad.
drawing a Thought Scour every turn is
Yeah,
not terrible.
Not
Like,
terrible.
it's
If you can
especially
defend your
in
Jace,
Kess,
yeah.
where like you can like mill yourself, like you just Thought Scour yourself and draw a card and like keep doing that, and like you just generate value through having stuff in the graveyard.
Yeah, this is
Notably,
this is great.
this is also exciting in some specific decks, specifically so for white consultation decks, because Jace isn't a creature. That means that we now have decks that we can actually play Humility in and have efficient win cons in.
That's
which
true,
is really
yeah.
interesting.
Yeah,
because,
humility as a win con with Jace is just...
It's sort of been like a holy grail for a while of a stacks piece, right? Where like it's so hard to play Humility and actually still be able to win the game after resolving it. Like in pretty much any deck before this, right? Where like you pretty much just need a creature or like your commander to do something to win the game, whereas now you just be like, okay, stick Humility, and then I don't care, I just do consult stuff.
I think one of the sweet deck that one of our listeners and someone we play with, we play with, or Spleenface and I play with somewhat, is shout out to Timmy T1000, our listener, who's got a sweet Humility Aloro deck.
Man.
Turbo AdNauseam, like mid-range AdNauseam, and
Alora Humility mid-range AdNauseam.
oh man, yeah. This is definitely gonna slot in that list for sure.
Yeah.
One thing I just wanted to say about this card is I don't think it will see play, or at least it's not guaranteed to see play in like Tainted Shimmers or lists because of the Scouts warning line that people are trying to take advantage of. Yeah. You'd have to like be on like Wrath Capuchin to flash in.
Post Shimmer triple blue is not necessarily ideal.
The easiest thing to achieve.
Okay, so on to our next card.
Our next card is Karn, the Great Creator. Legendary Planeswalker Karn. Casts for 4 generic mana. Starts with 5 loyalty. Has activated abilities of artifacts your opponent's control cannot be activated. As a static ability, it has a +1 of, until your next turn, up to 1 target non-creature artifact becomes an artifact creature with power and toughness equal to its converted mana cost. And then it has -2, you may choose an artifact card from outside the game or in exile. You own from outside the game or in exile, reveal that card, and put it into your hand.
So the most important aspect of this is clearly its +1, which just pops Moxen, right? It's like, it's Mox Monkey. Yeah.
It's great.
No, but
it's just
auto include in Sisse.
Right. It's so first of all because like you didn't really like having to play Nullrod and Stony Silence because like it turns off your Moxen, like your
entire combo because you chain Moxen.
Well, now with the boat.
You were always chaining Moxen anyway.
No, but like as in like before you could combo if you had like enough mana in play, and like you didn't have to go through the Moxen. Now because of the boat line, you actually need to have it active. The boat.
Everybody
the big old boat.
Get in the boat.
Get in the boat.
Dude, you gotta get your cat in the boat.
But also just so first of all, replacing those with a one-sided effect, and then also making it tutorable with Sisse is just nuts.
Yeah, the only sad drawback is that we can't have wish boards in EDH because then you just get to be able to tutor up Karn, slam it, one-sided, asymmetrical null rod, and then just minus it and draw a card. Could you imagine?
Just get there.
Minus it and draw. Mycos's Last? You don't have to have in your deck.
Oh my god. Yeah, I think Karn basically guaranteed that they will never allow wish boards.
Sideboards in EDH,
it's just like
put the chain veil.
Also the fact that like he makes progress on clearing rocks while he's down too. So like in the inevitability that he's getting removed because he's gonna get removed for somebody to combo off, you're gonna have like cleared crypts and Moxes in the meantime.
Also,
right?
Its down isn't completely irrelevant because it puts cards from exile as well. Yeah. So if you're playing Sisse and your Paradox Engine or your boat gets and so boat is the Skyship Weatherlight for those
the old one.
Who don't
know sails the seas.
Yeah.
The skies.
You call it a cloud. But yeah, so if that gets exiled by someone down ticking their Ashiok and just milling it.
Taking it.
Yeah, you get to find Karn and it can just regrow back into your hand.
So that's like the obvious application. Do you guys think this is going to see play anywhere else?
I think people were talking about it in Godo.
I can see that maybe.
The problem being is
getting back helm too.
It gets back helm, and then also just the slowing people down like that. The only problem is that defending it in Godo is hard.
Yeah, that's the
just
one thing.
Uptick your sphere into a block or something.
Is it until
your next turn?
Until your next turn. Okay, yeah.
And it does. You can do that.
Yeah, Godo does run a fair amount of artifacts.
It also 3 CMC artifacts. Right?
It also gets up to 6 loyalty on the first turn that it's down, which is not a negligible amount.
Hopefully, yeah, surprise.
And you just uptick, get your Urgolem Sky, make it a 4/4, easy.
Yeah. So Sisei, Godo, maybe some other stacks to your decks that just
I could see this being a meta tech in if you
me.
No, not specifically. I was thinking more PST for mirrors.
Yeah,
where
sure.
you just want the effect to slow the rest of the table down. You can generate the mana anyway. It's colorless.
You can beat people to death with a paradox.
Paradox beats, man. That's the real fear. Okay, so our the next card on our list, Sick.
Sure. This is a good one.
Okay.
All right. So this is Neoform. Blue and a green sorcery. As an additional cost to sacrifice this creature, as an additional cost to cast a spell. That's a good one. Sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a creature card with converted mana cost equal to 1 plus a sacrificed creature's converted mana cost. Put that card into the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it, and then shuffle your library. So basically, it's a one-time pot activation, right?
Yeah.
You just use it single time. All that good stuff. Where am I excited about this card in? Specifically, surprise, Shuffle Hulk.
No way. Wow.
Who would have guessed?
The deck that wants all the good cards.
So basically, I never thought that I was gonna get another good card for Shuffle Hulk. I figure
how could this deck possibly get any better?
I thought we were we had I'm already skipping out on playing tutors. We have too many tutors to play in the deck, and I'm just
what a problem to have.
There's just I don't need more cards. There's enough gas in the deck. It would have to be something printed that was another 0/1 mana good counter spell, a better
something
boards.
that fixes a blood artist that costs 1 CMC.
Yeah, just things that they would never in their right minds ever print, and then this gets printed. So basically, what Neoform does. So base case for Neoform is you pod Timna into Academy Director.
Not too bad.
Yeah,
which is
seems all right.
pretty good. You're casting Timna anyway, 90% of your games because you're a sandbaggy fuck and you just want to use it. And then later on you go for 3 mana you go sack outlet pot activation and you just win for 3 mana, which is pretty ridiculous. The better part about this is that inside of Hulk lines with Spellseeker, it gets real stupid. So
enlighten us.
So basically, there's a problem before in Shuffle Hulk, which is that in a lot of cases, unlike a lot of other Hulk decks where you would have sack outlet and stuff, or manual or regular breakfast Hulk, having to do Spellseeker piles where you go 1 CMC sack outlet plus 2 CMC answer Leading Relic Order or Gilded Drake to answer something plus a Spellseeker as a pile meant the Spellseeker had to go get Reanimate to reanimate the Hulk and then continue comboing.
Yep.
The problem with that is that Reanimate isn't a good card unless you have Razaketh, which a lot of Hulk decks don't, because with the Reanimate you need Entomb Reanimate and a sack outlet out, which is just not a thing that you want to do. Now, instead of having to go get the Reanimate there, you can go get Neoform, use Neoform, sacrifice the Spellseeker that got the Neoform, and then turn the Spellseeker into an Academy Director or a Body Snatcher, which lets you get something back. And also, that means that we're not wasting slots on that anymore, so we can Hulk double 3 times. We can multi-Hulk 3 times, and just assemble all of the answers and stuff instead. For 2 extra mana during the combo turn. So you can do stuff now, if there's a Curse Totem on board, you just go, for 2 extra mana, I'm gonna Flash Hulk, get the answer to that inside of my Flash Hulk pile, and then pay the 2 extra mana for Neoform and just combo through it anyway. And you can also do that.
Does this ever make you want to run a Grand Abolisher?
It was a consideration. I'm not totally sure, just because you have a lot of instant speed stuff anyway, right? And I guess if you're going at sorcery speed, because
people could kind of chain together interaction with with like multiple creature removal spells or bounce spells. Or things
so
like that,
with Grand Abolisher, it ups the number of one-shot interaction that people need to beat you by 1.
Yeah.
Which I guess if you're in like a very removal heavy meta is definitely a thing.
Well, it also means they have to burn it immediately.
Yeah. So
they have to have Grave Hate.
So
right?
okay, so
Otherwise,
if you have, so it would require a 5 mana flash. So it gets up to a lot of mana.
Yeah.
But for with Grand Abolisher, it's now a 5 mana flash, and you beat 2 removal spells. What?
You resolve flash, get Grand Abolisher, sack outlet, and Neoform.
You need mana for Memory's Journey. I guess it's a 4 mana.
Why do you need Memory's Journey?
Okay, no. So it is a 4 mana one. So what happens is, you need to have So you need to have the Neoform plus flash up, or like the mana for Neoform, and then have the flash mana up. So you go flash. If they remove the Hulk right then you go for your regular combo and then have the Memory's Journey back up. So they need 2 more removal spells to get you. If they hold their interaction, you go for Grand Abolisher, and they can't interact anymore. So basically it means that they now need 3 removal spells instead of 2 removal spells to beat you. And for only 4 mana,
and one of them has to be Grave Hate specifically.
Yes. Yeah. And then removal just gets blank. So it definitely could be an option to go test out Grand Abolisher now. I don't know. Might be worth it. We'll see. But yeah, that's sort of the application for Shovel Hulk right now because it's disgusting. It also it lets you do a lot of other stupid piles because it basically just lets you, for an extra 2 mana, it lets you fit in 2 CMC worth of stuff in a Hulk pile, which like doesn't sound that good because you're just paying 2 mana to put 2 mana in, but it means that like you don't have to have the card in your hand. Yeah, you just like you turn 2 mana into any 2 mana card in your deck. Outside of Shovel Hulk though, a couple other neat interactions. So Neoform, because it specifically has a line of text that says put a 1/1 counter on it, you can use this to pod a 1 mana dork into an Incubation Druid and a turned on Incubation Druid. Sure. So it just taps for 3 immediately, which is pretty neat. I mean, notably, it also does all the other pod stuff where like you turn 1 mana dorks into 2 mana answers or like 2 mana big dorks or all that good stuff. Turn like 2 mana creatures into other stuff. I don't know. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so our next card on this list, Null, do you want to get this one?
I think Sping will take this one.
Okay, sure.
So our next card is Niv Mizzet Reborn, the first character to have 4 legendary creature cards printed. It is a legendary creature, Dragon Avatar. It's a 6/6 flyer that casts for a white, a blue, a black, a red, and a green mana. Niv Mizzet is all 5 colors now. And it has, when Niv Mizzet Reborn enters the battlefield, reveal the top 10 cards of your library. For each color pair, choose a card that's exactly those colors from among them. Put the chosen cards into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So there's a card that has seen play in a few different decks in cEDH. It's called Food Chain. So generally what it does is you find some creature that you can cast from exile, and then you cast it repeatedly with Food Chain to net infinite mana that you can only use to cast creature spells. And then you want your commander to be a win condition in some way. And typically, obviously these decks have used Tazri in the past, where you run the allies and you find an ally that wins by repeatedly casting Tazri over and over again. So Niv does similar things with several multicolored cards. Some of the best ones are Spark Caster, which bounces itself when you play it and deals 1 damage to an opponent. There's Sirku, which whenever you cast a blue or black spell, like Niv, you exile the top card of someone's library. So there's a whole bunch of different outlets that this Niv can find, and it's a deck very similar to Food Chain Tazri, with the key difference being when you cast it, it's a lot better, because you can draw Abrupt Decay, or Joven's Veto,
Treasure Find.
You could run Treasure's Find, Limjewel's Vault, Sterling Grove,
Fire Covenant.
A reasonable subset of all those at the same time.
Yeah. Just any number of them.
It beats casting
6/6 with fly.
Yeah, it beats casting Tazri for value and finding Bagra Diabolus.
It also, of note, gets through like Stranglehold, where Tazri doesn't. Yeah. Because you're revealing the top 10 instead of like searching a library, so like you don't lose to Stranglehold or Mind Sensor. Yeah, you don't.
How is the deck building restriction compared to Tazri? Like,
I mean,
So there's two different ways you can build. So Tazri was built with an AdNauseam in the core of the deck.
Yeah,
Niv can be
generally.
built in two different ways. One is like the AdNauseam kind of slim version of Niv, and the other is your more value Niv, where you're including cards with higher CMC that do have some nice utility. Spleen, you want to give a couple of those?
yeah, sure. So you can run things like Wear Tear. There's also some of the split and fuse type cards where both sides are potentially useful. There's Consigned to Oblivion, which is an aftermath card where the front half is return. It's 1 in a blue, return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand, so like a Cyclonic Rift. And then it has a version you can cast from your graveyard that makes someone discard 2 cards. Has a very high CMC, so you don't want it with AdNaus, but you can find it off Niv, and sometimes discarding cards gets you there. But yeah, so there's definitely a lot of spells that are either already run or, maybe don't quite make the cut, but being able to draw them off Niv pushes it over the edge. Like Counter Squall would be a good example for that.
Yeah.
Definitely Sterling Grove is an example.
Yeah,
of
Sterling
that.
Grove to find the food chain or make the food chain be unable to be targeted, both of which can be very useful. And it is a 6/6 with flying that hits people sometimes.
Just slaps them.
If you were to do the AdNauseam route, and so you weren't running any of the cute things, if you just decided to swap your 3 win condition cards that you run in Tazri for the 3 hard win conditions that you run in Niv Mizzet, because there are some sort of softer ones like Joyra or Hydroid Crisis that don't make you win, but set you up to win.
It's still the same percentage though with Labman, I believe, like off of the Forbidden Tutors.
No, but if you hit the Labman, if you hit with hard outlets, you can hit 2 outlets and a Labman and still win. Whereas with soft outlets, you can only you can hit 2 outlets or a soft outlet, and so if you just swapped for the cheapest 3 hard outlets, you would increase the total CMC of the deck by 4, which hurts the AdNauseam a little bit, but
it's not a lot.
The odds that your Tazri had 2, 2, and 5 as the CMC. This would go to 4, 4, and 5.
I think
maybe you're consistently flipping one of the 4s, so it's 2 extra life off your AdNauseam a decent amount of the time. So that's not super critical, but if you decided that you didn't love the AdNauseam package, maybe, there's a lot of sort of storm hate in the meta. You can take out a lot of the cards that aren't great outside of AdNauseam, like your rituals, and sort of play a little bit slower and try and build the deck that way.
Yeah. Okay, so...
That's a good summary, yeah.
That's a long discussion for a card that's basically just a swap in, swap out with Tazri.
Yeah. Well, but I think...
It's important to say
there are some distinctions, though, yeah.
Null, do you want to cover next card?
Yeah, so the next one up is Narset Parter Veils is another Narset. For 1 blue, has a static ability. Each opponent can't draw more than 1 card each turn. And a -2 ability, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature non-land card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order for 5 loyalty. I think this card is gonna make a huge impact. I think this card's nuts.
Really, I think it's good. I don't think it's like amazing. It's not. It's not like Notion. It's not like a second Notion Thief or anything like that. I mean, because that's what you're sort of thinking of it as, right? Like it combos with wheels and whatnot. Just to mind twist your opponents and then draw 7. Doesn't have flash like Notion Thief does, so you can't like get people there. Still allows them to draw 1, right? So they do get their standard draw for turn, but you're also not like stealing it or anything. It's just kind of disappearing.
It's an Edric effect, right?
It's a Leovold effect.
It's a Leovold.
Sorry, it's sort of Leovold.
It's a Leovold.
The other
Tamer,
Thrustian.
It's a Leovold effect. But this, if you think like Opus Thief type decks only really have 2 of these effects. Now they have 3. That's a huge boost.
Well, it's just like Opus Thief, like with with Smothering Tide, like Opus Thief, I think got to around the density that is sort of required for like the wheel thing to like.
We've had Alms Collector this whole time. Okay,
just like you need some density of like real amplifiers plus wheels to actually make it work. And I think Smothering Tithe sort of just like pushed it over the edge a bit. Yeah. But with this, like this is definitely like an auto addition to like any real Storm type of decks. And I think it's like a really nice addition for them too.
As long, and you know, just like all these other Planeswalkers, as long as you can keep it alive, it does have value. It does have that drawback. Has limited amount of activations because it has no plus ability.
But yeah, the fact that it downticks to find you a non-creature.
It's a great downtick. It's one you want to use.
Yeah, you're gonna get 2 downticks from it, and it still stays in play after that. Like, so if you can protect it from any damage, that's kind of sweet.
Ever since they printed Search for Azcanta, I feel like we've seen the Search for Azcanta downtick like all over the place.
Yeah.
Or like the Search for Azcanta activation on a whole bunch of different cards.
Yeah, I think Narset just like against Tymna stuff in general.
Yeah,
like you just like if you can defend, like obviously if you can defend a Narset, you're probably not getting hit by Tymnas in the first place. But also, like
somebody else might be.
Yeah, it stops the Tymna players from just trading beats with
Ferry
each
player.
other, or just like trading beats with each other to draw cards, right? Like it's just like no, you don't get to draw cards anymore, which is pretty nice. I think it's like one of the niches that Opus Thief is like really good at exploiting, and I think people should probably try to pick that up more against Tymna decks, in my opinion.
Yeah,
where like
makes sense.
You just have a lot of natural hate in the deck for Tymnas, so.
And our final card, not our final card. We've got one card after this. Our second final card is Narset's Reversal, which is 2 blue for an instant that reads: copy target instant or sorcery spell, then return it to its owner's hand. You may choose new targets for the copy.
This is really cool. So like it's like we know that like Remand has generally not been a great card in a lot of cEDH decks. I mean, like since Aether Flux Reservoir got printed, it's not really seen play in anything. Like you used to be able to do like Remand tendrils to actually kill people in Storm decks.
Does the Cast Storm deck, does this run Remand for the bonus round shenanigans?
No,
you run Unsubstantiated.
Okay, yes. True.
But this is just so much better than Unsubstantiated or whatever, right? So so Narset's Reversal, you still get the original copy. Because it copies it and then returns it to your hand. So you can, like, this is really cool for both, like, offensive and defensive purposes, no matter which way you want to use those terms.
Yeah.
But, so, like, you can use it for stuff like copying somebody's tutor and, like, setting them back, like, 2 mana, 3 mana, something like that.
Just like a tempo play?
Yeah, just like, like, stop you from using your tutor this turn, steal your tutor, go do whatever with that, or whatever stuff like that. You can copy power cards, so this is like better than a counterspell on an AdNauseam a lot of the time, because like they're tapping a lot of mana for an AdNauseam. You just go, okay, steal for 2 mana, get my AdNauseam.
It's hard to say that it's for sure a better ad.
Yes, but like it's just like it has a lot of benefits over traditional counterspell when targeting like power cards a lot of the time, right?
Now the obvious downside is that it needs to. You're going to struggle to hit. It's not a counterspell.
No, it's not a hard counterspell. They're still going to have the card.
Yes.
For later, right? So like you can't. It's sort of like a delay with a lot shorter of a clock on it, right? Yeah. Something like that. Where like you can't you don't play this card and expect the thing to never become a problem again. You use this as again like a tempo play. But a really strong tempo play because you're gaining something proportional to how, like, strong the thing that you countered was as well. So I think it's really cool for a lot of those purposes. It's also, like, just as good as a counterspell and a counter war a lot of the time, just because, like, either...
The one drawback as well, though, is there's a scariness where you can effectively turn your 3v1 counter war into a 2v1v1 counter war. AdNauseam is the most critical card for this. If you Narset's Reversal and AdNauseam, I now have to make there's a very real decision here about whether I'm fighting with you or against you, right? Like, if, am I going to pass to the player who casts the AdNauseam thinking they have a counterspell, and if they don't, then you get an AdNauseam? Or do I just now try and counter the AdNauseam again, and now we've burned another counterspell?
Well, in that case, what you can do is that person that has to choose can just counter the original AdNause, because they can just physically
Right, but then we
reversal,
both spent a counter spell on it.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
I go to counter
Sure,
the original
yeah.
AdNause and then the...
So you can end up getting into a counter war
it's a
over
flusterstorm.
the
No.
Narset's reversal, right?
Yes.
Is the thing, right? So like you can have an initial counter war, and then the Narset's reversal can spark another branch of that, which could be a problem.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
you have people who both don't want the original AdNauseam to resolve, fighting over the copied AdNauseam.
Yes. Another cool thing about this, though, it can also replace Noxious Rival for Twister Loop decks, just because you can use the Narset's reversal to bounce Twister, do whatever with it. Make sure that you never actually have to like put the Twister in the grave.
Yep.
Or just like stuff like that in general. It doesn't replace the multi-shuffle part of it, but it replaces like the regrowth part of it.
Yep.
Of the combo, which is pretty neat. I think I would place this right below like the auto include echelon of stuff. Like, I think I'd place it like right like above, definitely above negate in my list of stuff that I'm willing to play a lot of the time.
Above negate.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know about that.
I think
it only hits instance and source.
Yeah, but I think like the benefit that you're getting out of it is like comparable to a mana drain. Like it's not a permanent thing, but like you're getting like a copy of the card instead of the mana. Like okay, I definitely don't think it's better than like counterspell, mana drain, force of will, like pact, mental misstep.
Wait, you said
like,
you wouldn't make it an auto include. What deck doesn't run negate?
Shovel.
Yeah, shuffle.
Seriously?
Yeah.
It's
I
two,
don't run any
yeah.
2 CMC interaction.
Okay.
So, like,
but you consider running this over negate, even though it's double blue?
Yes. Well, if you're playing negate, you're playing like counterspell and mana drain already, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm assuming you could support a double blue.
But I mean, I would if I'm looking to flush out my counter suite, I'm not gonna. I don't think Narset's reversal is where I
Doesn't
want to go
cats
with the negate.
sometimes not run at least counterspell, but run negate? Because they don't want to support the double blue, but negate's good enough.
I guess I
thought there were decks like that, or maybe it's
I don't know.
Tetris.
Yeah, I think okay. So I think a lot of other community members as well have been like really hyped about Narset's reversal, and I think it's warranted. But I don't think it's an auto include in like everything.
Yeah, no, I
is
agree
like
with
my
that,
thing.
yeah.
Like I think there are definite uses for it, and it's really good in a lot of situations. But like, so the big thing for me is you have to be okay holding up mana proactively for like a counterspell during a turn cycle, right?
Yeah,
like to defend yourself, because like Narset's reversal isn't good when you're not just like proactively holding up mana for turn cycles, like, and you want to be doing that as part of your game plan. Because like if you're just like being like a Shovelhog player and just like aggressively going for it and like tapping out every turn or whatever, like you're never going to use the Narset's reversal.
This is the only case I need to make to show negate is better than Narset's reversal. You go to cast your flash.
Yeah.
Oh wait, my Narset's reversal doesn't seem very good. You go Food Chain Native goes cast their Food Chain. Oh wait, Narset's reversal doesn't seem very good. Like when in the world of hypotheticals where everyone is only casting AdNauseam.
Yeah. Narset's reversal gets really good.
Yeah, Narset's reversal.
See, if you're on Sacred Hog and you're playing against a Hog deck, you just go Narset's reversal.
But I mean, in the world where everyone's only casting AdNauseam, Arcane Denial also seems pretty good. So.
I think this card is like you said. It's probably it's getting a lot of hype. I personally think it's maybe a bit too much hype, but it's certainly not a bad card, and it's certainly something that people need to look at.
Yeah.
Also, it definitely goes in decks that are already running bonus round, because then it's also like it's an outlet that's also almost as good as like a counterspell.
Because I don't know if we mentioned this, but Narset's reversal with copy effects does work.
Yeah. Okay, our next card. So 2 more cards. Yeah. Sorry, I don't have this card in front of me.
Not.
Let's get Spleen. Yeah. Why don't you read this one?
Oh, okay. We're gonna start with Blast Zone. So it is a land. It enters the battlefield with a charge counter on it. It taps for colorless. It has XX tap, put X charge counters on Blast Zone, and 3 tap, sacrifice it. Destroy each non-land permanent with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Blast Zone. So it's the Engineered Explosives effect on a land.
Yes. Which is actually... So, to note, again, this is the one that I think the big thing that separates both of them. that isn't immediately apparent is that you can't blast zone for 0.
Yeah.
Because it comes in with a counter on it. So I think in a lot of other formats it's a big deal because it can't clear like tokens like whatever, all that good stuff that you would usually like have engineered sources for. In cEDH, that's not as big of a deal. We don't really have a lot of tokens.
The only things you really care about are the 3 Moxen and Mana Crypt.
Yeah.
But I don't think I would spend this to blow up Moxen.
No.
Even if I had the option.
Yeah.
Like you're
spending
0.
You're spending
the amount of time I would sacrifice it for 0 would be very low.
A land that can just clear other people's dorks, though.
That's a good one.
Not bad.
Yeah, and then also that can uptick to clear things that you have problems with. So if you're in Gitrog and it's being discussed in Gitrog as just a utility land. And Gitrog, a lot of the times in the past, it was a deck with a lot more utility lands, and we've slowly been swapping those out for more and more just better colors to have better access to colors. But this is something that might actually be worth the trouble there because it's just so versatile and so free in the sense that you've just got such easy access to lands via like crop rotation or Sylvan Tutor or Sylvan Scrying if you're running it. That turning on those tutors has the ability to remove a resting piece.
Especially you
really good.
Get this back continuously as well and get
With
Rog very
Loam?
easily,
Yeah.
like with Loam or like whatever else you're doing with it, where like you can just continue getting this back and like it cracks itself too, so you gotta draw and get Rog with it. And then also get whatever benefit you need.
And this is a classic. We were talking about this with Emergence Zone, where we're talking about it for Gitrog and Godo. Godo is also another deck that really wants Blast Zone because it's got
It can clear enchantments.
It can clear Stony Silence. Yeah, and that deck is already running Expedition Map because they just want access to some of their lands. So Blast Zone pretty good there as well.
I can see it in people are going to yell at me for this. I'm going to get hate from both Frozen and Shaper for mentioning this, but I think it could do work in mono green decks. You can look at it for like blowing it up for 2 CMC in Yisan.
Yeah, people were saying like, oh, I don't really like this in Yisan because you're just rather verse. The thing is that you can. I like it for the same reason I like Scavenger Grounds. Well, Scavenger Grounds isn't so great right now because of Gitrog being able to shuffle and Shuffle Hulk also just have being able to play around that. But
although notably, this does also like you can still use it through
Abolisher, clear an Abolisher. So the so in Yisan you're just holding up your verse mana anyway, and holding this up and 2 green lands or whatever to either verse with Yisan or put a charge counter on Blast Zone, it's basically free.
Yeah, like obviously you're losing some amount of like green mana from it, but like
forest benefit with your untappers.
But like at some point, I would rather just like have access to a Blast Zone if needed. Like obviously you might be clearing some of your own stuff as well, but like just like clearing a Curse Totem from a land is like pretty good in that deck, I think.
Clearing a Linval.
I was about to say, eventually just like getting to Linvala mana. Like, you make a lot of mana in Yisan anyway, and like maybe not through Linvala.
And because it's just so exact too, right? You tick up to clear Linvala and your Yisan stays in play.
Yeah.
You can even make your Teamer Sabertooth indestructible.
Oh, it's perfect. It's so perfect.
I don't think, this doesn't do a ton of work, but it's a neat little addition to a bunch of like low color decks that might need the effect.
Would you run this in Null? Would you run this into Ferry?
I don't think I'd run it into Ferry.
No?
No. I think it's so tight on mana already. Like, I don't even think it really cares for that type of effect, honestly.
No? Not to clear dorks or anything like that?
No, I think if you're not keeping up mana to counter your anti-stacks pieces, then you're already losing.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I will play it in Muldrotha, though. That's for sure.
Get there.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Just one more thing. It does also make hog piles awkward sometimes, right? Like, you just have it in play. That would also be a use for it in Yisan, where, like, maybe, like, yes, you might be clearing your own dorks, but also it's just like, crack it, clear your Sackhill and your Nomads, like, force you to use the interaction, and somebody else can come in with a removal spell, or just, like, for, like, Sacred, you're just like, okay, well, in response to your Sacred Guide activation, like, clear whatever else you have.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see the decks where this is if it ends up being something that Gitrog wants in the end,
Yep.
or only testing will
It
really bear
warrants
that
testing,
out.
yeah.
And so our final card, I think this is the card I'm most excited for in this whole set, actually.
Well, typical Gitrog player.
Yeah. Null, do you want to read this one?
Yeah, sure. So this is Finale of Devastation, X green sorcery. Search your library and or graveyard for a creature card with convert mana cost X or less and put it onto the battlefield. If you search your library this way, shuffle it. If X is 10 or more, creatures you control get +X and gain haste until end of turn.
So
Wow.
it's a Green Sun Zenith, but I can get any color and can get from grave.
And also just has this random mode that wins you the game.
Yeah.
It's
Just
also
an
a
outlet.
rare being included in the 2/2.
Okay, so if you stall up the board, you can get wrong. You've got nothing but mana. You just cast Finale of Devastation for X is 10. Find Kozilek. Have fun. Hooray!
Oh god.
But yeah, so just obvious. So many decks are like Yisan is on Green Suns and Court of Calling. You know, this is going to
For Silvala, yeah.
Yeah,
goes in.
Silvala,
And it's an outlet for Silvala, so like you don't need like Beats Within loops anymore. You just
Yeah.
like cast it for infinite and swing.
That's one of the things too. Like Gitrog, it's like this is just a good. You can just
Yeah.
win with beats the turn. The turn you cast this as an outlet card after you go. You make infinite mana. But in Gitrog, this so for 3 mana you get to find a discard outlet, Putrid Imp. But then also it gives you access to Bob, which is something Green Suns can't do.
Grimflayer.
Grimflayer you could find with Green Suns, but also
sure,
I don't
but,
think
yeah.
Grimflayer is that popular anymore.
Sure.
But just also the fact that it regrows from the graveyard
Yeah.
is just randomly relevant.
Just like you just like mill over a couple
It didn't,
of alright, just
it
get
didn't need that
in
line
back,
of
yeah.
text, but it just has it. Yeah, this was
It just gets you stuff back. It's
Only
just
it could also search your hand.
so neat. I think
Enter exile.
I think Bloodpod is going to be interested in this as well.
so many decks that
personally-
just run utility creatures.
Yeah.
Right, like
Yeah,
probably want this in Sisay for sure. Like
There's a lot of stuff that's like already running Chord. And
Yeah.
like this is just like it's an equivalent to Chord that like sometimes is just going to be like way more consistent for mana cost, right?
yeah.
This is really neat.
Just an all around
Actually,
solid card.
We're currently testing it in 4-color Ashmi, just as a like because we weren't running Green Sun Zenith, but this can go get like
Tandem look
some
if
stuff.
you wanted it.
No. But it can get some stuff. Like it gets Death Threat Shaman as like the base case, which is like fine, but it also is like an actual WinCon outlet.
Okay.
Just because we've been sort of looking for like a secondary outlet aside from like having to do like middle shenanigans
Yeah.
and stuff like that, just like a hard outlet. And it can also just like get a Seedborn Muse when you have enough mana. Like it's sort of just like it sort of looks like a worse Green Sun Zenith, but it can also just like rebuy like a Seedborn from the grave. It can do like a bunch of other neat stuff.
Yeah. Solid card. Okay. I think that
That about covers it.
yeah,
That's
wraps
a
up our
whole lot of cards.
This has been a really sweet set.
I'd
Oh my
say
God.
this
Coolest
set
in
is
a while.
Yeah.
is like on par or better than Kaladesh Block. Like it is just the amount of stuff in here is nuts.
And like this is just for CDH, man.
Yeah.
You start looking at for like mid power and stuff, like just so many more cards and even like standard. I've been playing a lot of arena and like
There
the
are
amount of
so
decks
many new decks that can lose to mono red. It's great.
Yeah. I'm just gonna just quick out there. Bolsa Citadel Explore Storm. Great fun standard deck. Play that on arena right now. Lots of fun.
That was a rip from Explore Frenzy.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Karn Mike's Platinum does work in modern.
yeah, let's
Yeah?
move on
Okay.
from here.
Yeah.
So now we're done with that. It's time for everyone's favorite
Check your gut.
Just yeah. So this week we're gonna have Null do the gut check question.
Yeah.
What do we got? What do we got on the deck?
So I have a question for you guys. Matte or glossy sleeves? And then I feel like after that, just go with your current sleeve setup.
Matt.
Matt, yeah.
Yeah, matte.
Okay. Yeah. Easy.
Okay,
Yeah.
but follow up. Matte or glossy, like the clear part of the sleeve?
Glossy clear part.
Yeah, you want the glossy clear part for your foils, but
Matt always.
I go with Matt. I go with Matt because of the Eclipse
feel.
sleeves. Yeah,
Shuffle
and the shuffle
feel.
feel is so good.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like the shuffle feels a bit better. But
Okay.
I have the occasional foil. And they look a bit better
Yeah,
than
they
not
do.
matte sleeves.
Eclipse sleeves really dull out the foils, that's for sure. Although, yeah, Ultra Pro, you guys should definitely get in contact with us, and we'll shill your Eclipse sleeves even harder.
If that's your Dragon Shield, then
Yeah. Oh yeah. Let's not rule out any.
Katanas, all shill katanas.
We shill the most for the people who pay us, right? Yeah. So moving on. It's on to listener questions. So we've got a listener question from Meepomatic, which is, how do you consider your card choices when tweaking decks for an open meta? Do you run the standard lists, or do you just ballpark the attendance's archetypes and tweak from there?
Good question. I actually have a fair amount. I'd say I have a fair amount of experience with this, just because tournament metas and just playing like a lot of random rank stuff with people that just bring random stuff in. A lot of the time, I tend to, for blind metas, my general approach to it is not so much to. It sort of is to specifically target like what I think I'm going to see, but also a lot of the time I will think about what is it that I lose to the hardest that like I could see, and then just make sure that for each of those scenarios I have the ability or a likely scenario to get out of, right? So like if I'm playing a Hulk deck, I'm going to be like, okay, even in a blind meta, I'm going to be like, okay, well, there might be a rip, there might be a Grafter's Cage, might be like ley lines, stuff like that.
Do you put in more interaction?
I need to have options to get out of those scenarios, right? Like you just want to make sure that like you have the ability to play out of a wide range of like board states and scenarios.
Yeah,
in
for me in Gitrog right now, I've got Grafter's Cage in my main list just because Hulk is so fast, and having that kind of cheap piece that just makes them slow them down enough just to give you some time, and then also it just hits a bunch of other things as well. But I've got a sort of a sideboard of cards that come in and out depending on the meta. So that's like Pernicious Deed, Toxic Deluge, more. So I think I'd consider Natural State something that's in that sideboard slot as well, depending on whether or not you're seeing lots of like PST or Rest in Peace, Curse Totem, things like that. And then finally, sometimes like Extirpate if you're really scared of like Hulk or Gitrog Mirrors.
The one other thing, my general approach when I'm adding or cutting hate pieces for a meta is I don't. I'm generally wary about swapping hate pieces. Like, I'll take out whatever it is, Null Rod for Grafdigger's Cage or whatever. I'd much rather find sort of a non-essential card to cut, or decide that running a specific Silver Bullet hate piece isn't worth it, and put in a generically good card. So, like, you cut your worst dork for an extra hate piece, or your worst cantrip or something like that, rather than swapping hate pieces, because changing one hate piece for another because you guess that that's going to be more prevalent is a very dicey game in my mind.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
I think there's something to be said too, though, for at least this is probably just a personal opinion, but I personally don't believe there's anything that exists like in the real world as a truly blind meta. I think there's always some amount of inferring that you can do from the information that you have about like a meta that you're going to see. So a lot of the time, like I'll going into like a tournament setting, right? You can be like, well, I'm probably going to see more stacks because a lot of people that enter tournaments are maybe not super, embedded in the community at large.
Yeah. And
they just bring some of their stuff to whatever tournament they're playing, some of their brews, and a lot of those brews tend to end up with like stacks the elements, right? So like if I'm playing against a lot of unknowns, like especially in like an online tournament setting, and just be like, okay, well, I probably am going to have to account for a higher density of stacks than I might normally see. Whereas like if I'm seeing stuff like I'm going to some random LGS to go play, like it might be on the other side of like, well, maybe I'm not seeing as many like real cEDH decks, or maybe like people aren't playing like real interaction in those decks and have to be prepared for games to not go grindy even, maybe.
Yeah,
like maybe people are just
then like
playing,
your
like,
cards like Grafter's Cage could just become like dead.
Particularly with paper metas, though.
Yeah.
Paper metas are often dictated by what people can afford. So
Yeah.
you'll see a lot of Teferis, Yisans, Selvalas, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Decks that can be built much more completely on a budget.
Just even knowing the medium that you're preparing a deck to be played on can really give you a lot of information on what card choices you can expect. Like stuff like in like 1v1 formats, like if you're playing in real life, you generally know that you're going to have to account for like death and taxes, right? In like Modern or Legacy, where online that might not necessarily be the same.
Yeah, and
consideration.
And like Six said, there's really no. It's hard to say that there's no such, or it's hard to say that there's such thing as a blind meta.
Yeah.
Right. So, for example, if you're preparing for the next online cEDH tournament that the Discord / subreddit hosts, you can look back at the decks that have been brought to previous tournaments and be like, oh wow, people are bringing like Lin Civi, lots of Najeela, blah blah blah, and you can really kind of pick your stacks pieces to target these, or to not go too all in hating on just Hulk when it's only a couple decks in the meta.
Always a bunch of frog players.
Always frog players.
You can always count on that.
It's also you can also look at just the people that you can expect in the tournament, right? Like always, just like one of my first things for scouting for tournaments or games or whatever is you can always usually find a group of people that are probably going to be entering, and you might generally know their decks, so that can give you an idea of like the basis of what a meta might be formed around. So, which is why
I always play off meta janky.
Okay, so I think that brings this episode to a close. Remember to join us on our Discord, and that's linked in the show notes. You can email us at intothenorthpodcast@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter at intothenorthpodcast. You can follow us and become a patron on patreon.com, and we're going to be linking that in the show notes as well. Feel free to support us, help cover some of the costs and like hosting fees and whatnot. And if we get enough, if we hit certain benchmarks, we'll be upping our content. Check out the cEDH subreddit and Discords. That's PlayDH and just the cEDH standard Discord where they play Cockatrice. Our next episode will be in a month, and we look forward to sharing it with you guys.
See you guys then.
Have a good one.
See ya.
See you.